Imagine this. You're a devoted wife, finally pregnant after years of dreaming. When you discover your husband's chilling secret, he's not just cheating. He's plotting to abandon you in a remote Costa Rican jungle to solve his problems permanently. Left for dead in the wild, with your unborn child as your only motivation, you fight through betrayal, danger, and heartbreak. But here's the twist that will keep you hooked. What if survival isn't the end? What if you emerge stronger, building an empire from the ashes, exposing a web of lies, and returning as a billionaire force to be reckoned with? This isn't just a story of revenge. It's an epic tale of female empowerment, shocking revelations, an ultimate triumph that will have you cheering for every comeback moment. Stick around as I dive deep into Shock and He, pregnant wife abandoned in jungle, returned as billionaire's rival, a roller coaster of drama, suspense, and inspiration that unfolds chapter by chapter. You won't want to miss how Sarah turns her nightmare into a global revolution. If you're already intrigued and ready for more empowering stories like this, smash that like button to show your support. Drop a comment below with what you think will happen next or your favorite revenge trope. Share this video with a friend who needs some girl power motivation. And don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell icon so you never miss an upload from Drama Review. Let's build this community together. Your engagement keeps the drama coming. Now, let's jump into Chapter 1. Sarah Mitchell sat in the sterile waiting room of Riverside Medical Center, her hands trembling as she clutched the pregnancy pamphlets. At 38, this baby represented everything she had dreamed of during her 15 years of marriage to David. The morning sickness had finally subsided, and today would mark the halfway point of her pregnancy journey. Mrs. Mitchell, the ultrasound technician's voice broke through her thoughts. "We're ready for you." Sarah smiled, adjusting her maternity blouse. She had specifically chosen the blue one David had complimented her on last week, hoping he might surprise her by showing up despite his important client meeting. As a successful corporate lawyer, David's schedule rarely allowed for these precious moments, but Sarah had learned to cherish whatever time they could share. The cool gel on her growing belly made her shiver slightly as the technician began the ultrasound. On the monitor, their baby appeared in perfect detail, tiny fingers clearly visible as the little one seemed to wave at them. "Everything looks beautiful," the technician said warmly. "Would you like some pictures to take home?" "Please," Sarah whispered, tears of joy streaming down her face. "My husband will be so excited to see these." As the technician printed the ultrasound photos, David's phone buzzed on the small table beside the examination bed. He had forgotten it again, something that happened more frequently lately. Sarah glanced at the screen and saw a text notification from someone named Veronica. The message preview made her blood run cold. "Can't wait for tonight, baby." Sarah has no idea what's coming. Sarah's world tilted. The heartbreaking family drama she had only seen in movies was suddenly her reality. Her hands shook as she reached for the phone, but it buzzed again with another message. "Once you handle the Sarah problem, we can finally be together properly." "Ma'am, are you all right?" The technician noticed Sarah's pale complexion. I need a moment." Sarah's voice came out as barely a whisper. She stumbled to the small bathroom attached to the examination room, the ultrasound photos clutched in her trembling hands. As she sank to the floor, the images scattered around her like fallen dreams. The slow-motion tears that followed felt like each drop contained 15 years of devoted marriage, career sacrifices, and unconditional love. The pregnant wife betrayed scenario played out in her mind like a nightmare. David, her college sweetheart who had promised her the world, was having an affair with someone named Veronica. The woman who had given up her promising marketing career to be the perfect wife and homemaker had been living a lie. Sarah's reflection in the bathroom mirror showed a woman she barely recognized. When had she become so invisible? The midlife insecurities she had been battling seemed to mock her now. While she had been worrying about stretch marks and pregnancy weight gain, her husband had been building a secret life with another woman. Forcing herself to stand, Sarah collected the scattered ultrasound photos with shaking hands. Each image of their unborn child felt like a reminder of the betrayal that was about to unfold. She thought of all the business trips David had taken recently, all the late nights at the office, all the times he had made her feel like she was being paranoid or hormonal when she questioned his behavior. The gaslighting had been subtle but constant. "You're imagining things, Sarah. The pregnancy hormones are making you emotional. I work hard for this family." Every dismissive comment now took on new meaning. Walking back to the car, Sarah noticed unpaid bills scattered on the passenger seat of David's BMW. Strange, considering his successful law practice should have provided more than enough for their comfortable suburban lifestyle. She had trusted him completely with their finances, another decision that now seemed naive. That evening, David arrived home with an armful of roses and an unusually bright smile. Sarah sat at their kitchen table, the worn copy of the Good Wife book series beside her, a recent purchase that had felt like research for her own marriage struggles. "Surprise," David announced, setting down travel brochures with flourish. "I've booked us a second honeymoon. Costa Rica. Baby. A romantic eco-lodge in the jungle. Just what we need to reconnect." Sarah's heart wanted to leap with hope, but her mind raced with suspicion. "When did you plan this?" "I've been working on it for weeks. I know I've been absent lately, and I want to make it up to you. To us." His kiss on her forehead felt different now, tainted with the knowledge of his affair. Later that night, as David showered, Sarah heard him talking on his phone. Through the bathroom door, his voice carried clearly, "Don't worry, Veronica. The Costa Rica plan is perfect. I'll handle the Sarah problem permanently. After this trip, we'll never have to sneak around again." The blood drained from Sarah's face as the full scope of her husband's betrayal became clear. This wasn't just an affair. This was something far more sinister. The midlife betrayal story she found herself living was darker than any romance novel she had ever read. Sarah spent the sleepless night staring at the ultrasound photos, wondering what David meant by handling the Sarah problem permanently. The pregnancy that should have been their greatest joy had somehow become the catalyst for her greatest nightmare. As dawn broke over their suburban neighborhood, Sarah made a decision that would change everything. She would go on this jungle retreat, but she would be ready for whatever David had planned. The devoted homemaker was about to discover strengths she never knew she possessed. The next morning, David's behavior was almost manic in its cheerfulness. He helped her pack with an enthusiasm that felt forced, commenting repeatedly on how this trip would solve everything. Sarah played along, but every interaction felt like a performance in a play where only she didn't know the ending. "You're going to love the Eco Lodge," David said, folding her maternity clothes with uncharacteristic attention. "It's completely isolated, no cell service, no distractions, just us and nature." The word isolated sent chills down Sarah's spine. She discreetly packed her most important documents and what little cash she had access to, instincts she couldn't quite explain driving her preparations. As they drove to the airport, Sarah watched the familiar streets of their neighborhood disappear, wondering if she would ever see them again. The man beside her, singing along to the radio and holding her hand at red lights, felt like a stranger wearing her husband's face. The flight to Costa Rica passed in a blur of forced conversation and Sarah's growing anxiety. David seemed almost giddy, chattering about their itinerary with an energy she hadn't seen in months. Every smile felt calculated. Every touch seemed to carry hidden meaning. "The lodge is completely off the grid," David explained as their small charter plane descended toward the jungle canopy. "No internet, no phone service, just pure nature and quality time together." Sarah's pregnancy complications had been manageable at home, but the tropical humidity hit her like a wall as they stepped off the plane. The remote location immediately felt oppressive rather than romantic. Dense vegetation stretched endlessly in every direction, and the sounds of unseen wildlife created an ominous soundtrack to their arrival. Miguel, their local guide, greeted them with professional warmth, but Sarah caught something in his eyes when he looked at David, a flicker of recognition that seemed out of place for their first meeting. "Welcome to paradise," Miguel said, his English heavily accented but clear. The lodge is 1 hour by jeep. Then we walk final 30 minutes. Very beautiful, very private. One. The Eco Lodge appeared like something from a travel magazine. Rustic luxury surrounded by pristine rainforest. Their cabin sat on stilts, connected to the main buildings by elevated walkways that swayed gently in the humid breeze. It should have been romantic, but Sarah felt increasingly trapped. "Isn't this perfect?" David asked, wrapping his arms around her from behind as they stood on their private deck. "Just us, the baby, and all this natural beauty." For a moment, Sarah allowed herself to hope. Maybe she had misunderstood the phone conversation. Maybe David really was trying to save their marriage. The pregnant wife abandoned scenario in her mind began to feel like paranoid imagination rather than impending reality. That first evening, David was attentive in ways he hadn't been in months. He helped her navigate the uneven walkways, brought her extra pillows for her back, and even rubbed her swollen feet without being asked. The midlife betrayal story she feared seemed to transform into a genuine second chance. "I've been thinking about us," David said over dinner at the lodge's open-air restaurant, "about how I've let work consume too much of my time. This baby is our chance to start fresh." Sarah felt her guard dropping despite her earlier suspicions. The tropical setting, David's renewed attention, and her own desire to believe in their marriage created a perfect storm of false hope. Maybe the text messages had been about a surprise party or a business deal involving someone named Veronica. "I love you, Sarah," David said, reaching across the table to take her hand. "I know I haven't been the husband you deserve lately, but I want to change that." The words she had longed to hear finally came, but they felt hollow somehow. Still, Sarah chose to embrace the moment. "I love you too," she whispered back, tears of relief mixing with lingering doubt. The next morning brought new complications. Sarah's pregnancy symptoms intensified in the jungle heat, leaving her feeling nauseous and lightheaded. Miguel noticed her distress during their nature walk and expressed concern about the remote location. "The nearest medical facility is 4 hours away," he warned quietly while David examined exotic birds through binoculars. "If you experience any problems, it could be dangerous. The jungle is beautiful, but not forgiving to pregnant women." His words carried weight that seemed to extend beyond simple medical concerns. Sarah studied Miguel's weathered face, trying to understand what he was really telling her. "Has David been here before?" Sarah asked impulsively. Miguel's pause lasted too long. "Many tourists come to Costa Rica," he said finally, but his eyes wouldn't meet hers. That afternoon, while David napped, Sarah explored their cabin more thoroughly. In David's luggage, she discovered fertility clinic pamphlets, not for pregnancy support, but for termination procedures. Her hands trembled as she read the marked sections about emergency interventions and high-risk situations. The betrayal trauma hit her like a physical blow. David hadn't brought her here to save their marriage. He had brought her here to end their pregnancy, possibly to end more than that. The remote location wasn't romantic, it was strategic. Sarah's internal monologue became a war between her desire to trust and her growing fear. Every survival instinct screamed danger, but 15 years of marriage and emotional conditioning made her want to find innocent explanations for everything she was discovering. That evening, their dinner felt different. David's attention seemed forced, and his conversation kept circling back to topics that made Sarah uncomfortable. "You know, if anything happened to you or the baby out here, I'd be devastated," David said, cutting his meat with deliberate precision. "The isolation makes everything feel so much more intense." The comment felt like a threat disguised as concern. Sarah picked at her food, suddenly paranoid about everything she was consuming. When David insisted on ordering her a special smoothie for the baby's health, every alarm bell in her mind started ringing. "I'm not really hungry anymore," Sarah said, pushing the untouched drink away. "Come on, honey. You need to keep your strength up." David's smile felt predatory. "It's a long way back to civilization." As if summoned by David's words, A woman's laughter drifted from the main lodge area. Sarah looked up to see a stunning young woman with blonde hair and designer luggage arriving with a female companion. The woman's eyes found David immediately, and the brief moment of eye contact between them confirmed Sarah's worst fears. Veronica had come to Costa Rica. "Isn't that interesting?" David said casually, following Sarah's gaze. "Other tourists choosing the same remote location. What are the odds?" Sarah's pregnancy emotions mixed with betrayal trauma and pure terror. She was trapped in a jungle with her cheating husband and his mistress, hours away from help, carrying a baby that David apparently wanted to eliminate. The heartbreaking family drama of her life was becoming something far more sinister. "I think I need to lie down," Sarah said, standing unsteadily. "Of course, darling. You should get your rest." David's hand on her back felt like ice despite the tropical heat. "Tomorrow we have that long hike planned. You'll need all your energy." As they walked back to their cabin, Sarah caught glimpses of Veronica watching them from the main lodge. The younger woman's smile looked triumphant, as if she was already celebrating a victory Sarah didn't understand yet. That night, as David's breathing deepened into sleep beside her, Sarah stared at the jungle canopy through their window. Somewhere in the darkness, exotic birds called to each other, and larger predators moved through the underbrush. She was surrounded by dangers she could hear but not see, just like the threats in her own marriage. The pregnant woman's survival story she found herself living felt surreal, but Miguel's warnings echoed in her mind. Tomorrow's hike would take them deeper into the jungle, further from help. Whatever David had planned, it would happen soon. Sarah's hand moved protectively to her belly, where their baby grew unaware of the dangers surrounding them both. She had to stay alert, had to be ready for anything. The devoted homemaker was about to be tested in ways she never could have imagined. Chapter 3. Abandoned and Fighting for Survival. The morning of the hike arrived with ominous dark clouds gathering over the jungle canopy. Sarah's pregnancy symptoms had worsened overnight, leaving her feeling weak and disoriented. David's unusual solicitousness felt more threatening than caring as he helped her dress and insisted she eat a full breakfast. "You'll need your energy today," he said, watching her closely as she picked at the eggs he had specially ordered. "The trail can be challenging." Sarah noticed Veronica and her companion at a nearby table, both women dressed in expensive hiking gear that looked suspiciously new. Veronica's eyes never left David, and when she thought Sarah wasn't looking, she touched her phone in what appeared to be a predetermined signal. Miguel arrived to guide their hike with obvious reluctance. His weathered face showed concern as he assessed Sarah's condition, and he spoke quietly to David in rapid Spanish that Sarah couldn't understand. David's responses were sharp and dismissive. "Is everything all right?" Sarah asked. "Miguel is worried about the weather," David said smoothly. "But I assured him you're stronger than you look." The jungle trail started innocuously enough, but within an hour, Sarah was struggling. The humidity seemed to press against her lungs, making each breath feel insufficient. Her pregnancy complications, manageable in air conditioning, became debilitating in the oppressive heat. "I need to rest," Sarah gasped, leaning against a massive tree trunk. "We're almost to the waterfall," David encouraged, but his voice carried an edge of impatience. "Just a little further." Miguel shook his head. "The lady needs water and shade. This is not safe for pregnant woman." "She's fine," David snapped. "We continue." The interaction revealed something Sarah had never seen before: David's complete disregard for her well-being when it interfered with his plans. The caring husband facade was cracking, revealing something cold and calculating underneath. As they climbed higher into the jungle, the trail became more treacherous. Miguel pointed out dangerous wildlife tracks and warned about unstable ground, but David seemed determined to reach a specific destination, despite the obvious risks. "David, I really can't go much further," Sarah pleaded, her vision starting to blur from exhaustion and dehydration. "Don't be dramatic," David replied, no longer bothering to hide his annoyance. "Women have been having babies for thousands of years. A little exercise won't hurt you." Miguel stopped walking and turned to face David directly. "Sir, I cannot guide pregnant woman further in these conditions. We must return to lodge immediately. I'm paying you to guide us where I want to go. David's voice turned threatening. Not to make medical judgments about my wife. The exchange revealed the true power dynamic at play. Sarah realized with growing horror that David had specifically chosen Miguel for reasons that had nothing to do with his guiding experience. The betrayal trauma deepened as she understood that everyone around her was part of David's plan. Actually, Miguel, Sarah said with sudden clarity, I think you should take me back to the lodge. David can continue the hike if he wants. No. David's response was immediate and final. We stay together. As a family. The word family sounded obscene coming from a man who was clearly orchestrating her destruction. Sarah's midlife insecurities about being discarded for a younger woman paled in comparison to the realization that David wasn't just replacing her, he was eliminating her. Thunder rumbled overhead as they reached a remote clearing with a small research cabin. Sarah had no memory of this destination being mentioned in their itinerary, but David seemed familiar with the location. Perfect timing, David said, checking his watch. Miguel, why don't you scout ahead for the return trail? Sarah and I need some private time to talk. Miguel hesitated, his eyes meeting Sarah's with unmistakable worry. I should stay with the pregnant lady. That won't be necessary, David replied coldly. We'll be fine for an hour or two. No, Sarah said firmly. Miguel stays with us. David's mask slipped completely. Miguel, I'm sure you remember our conversation about additional compensation for your flexibility on this trip. The guide's shoulders sagged in defeat. Sarah watched in horror as Miguel realized he was caught between his conscience and whatever hold David had over him. With one last apologetic look at Sarah, Miguel disappeared into the jungle, leaving her alone with her husband. David, what's happening? Sarah's voice trembled as rain began to fall through the canopy. What's happening is that you've become a problem that needs solving, David said, his voice devoid of any warmth. Do you have any idea how much money I owe? How much your medical bills and this baby will cost? The rain intensified, creating a natural soundtrack for Sarah's growing terror. My medical bills. David, my insurance covers everything. Your insurance covers normal pregnancies, not the complications you've been having, not the specialized care you'll need. David's businesslike tone made the conversation feel surreal, and certainly not the kind of care a special needs child might require. Special needs. The ultrasound showed everything was normal. David pulled a folded paper from his pocket. The genetic testing came back. There are concerns. Concerns that require difficult decisions. Sarah snatched the paper from his hands, but the medical jargon was incomprehensible. I never authorized genetic testing. When did you? I authorized it. As your husband and the father, it's my right to make informed decisions about our family's future. The betrayal trauma reached new depths as Sarah realized David had been making medical decisions about her pregnancy without her knowledge. The heartbreaking family drama had become a nightmare of control and manipulation. This is my baby too, Sarah whispered through her tears. Not if you're not here to raise it. The words hung in the humid air like a death sentence. Sarah's pregnant woman survival story was beginning in earnest as she faced the reality that her husband had brought her to this remote location with deadly intent. The research station has medical facilities, David continued conversationally. Accidents happen in the jungle. Pregnant women are particularly vulnerable to exotic diseases, dangerous wildlife, tragic falls. Sarah's hand moved protectively to her belly as the baby kicked, as if sensing the danger surrounding them both. The rain was falling harder now, turning the jungle floor into treacherous mud and reducing visibility to mere feet. You're insane, Sarah breathed. I'm practical. Veronica and I have plans that don't include supporting an expensive, special needs child and a wife who gave up her earning potential 15 years ago. David's casual cruelty was more terrifying than anger would have been. Sarah turned to run, but David grabbed her arm with surprising strength. Where are you going to go? Sarah, we're hours from civilization. Miguel won't come back until I call him. And even if you somehow made it back to the lodge, Veronica is there with documentation showing you've been having mental health issues related to your pregnancy. The systematic nature of David's plan was becoming clear. This wasn't a crime of passion. It was a carefully orchestrated elimination of obstacles to his new life. Sarah's midlife betrayal story was ending with her complete destruction. Please, Sarah begged, I'll give you whatever you want. Divorce, custody, everything. Just let me live. It's too late for that. I'm in too deep with people who don't accept partial solutions. David's admission revealed layers of corruption Sarah had never suspected. As if to emphasize his point, David pulled a syringe from his backpack. This will make it easier. For both of us. Sarah's survival instincts finally overcame 15 years of submissive conditioning. She twisted away from David's grasp and ran into the jungle, leaving behind the trail and any hope of easy rescue. Behind her, she could hear David shouting her name, but his voice was already being swallowed by the sounds of the storm. Branches tore at her maternity clothes as she crashed through the undergrowth, her only goal to put distance between herself and the man who had planned her murder. The pregnant wife abandoned scenario was playing out in the most literal and terrifying way possible. After what felt like hours but was probably only minutes, Sarah collapsed against a massive tree trunk, her lungs burning and her pregnancy complications making each breath an effort. The rain had soaked through her clothes, and the jungle sounds around her seemed full of predatory intent. For the first time in 15 years, Sarah was completely alone. No husband to rely on. No comfortable suburban life to cushion her decisions. No familiar support systems to fall back on. The devoted homemaker, who had never even changed a tire, was now fighting for survival in one of the world's most dangerous environments. But as Sarah sat in the rain, feeling her baby's strong kicks against her ribs, something unexpected happened. Instead of despair, she felt a surge of maternal protection that was stronger than fear. David might have abandoned her, but she wouldn't abandon their child. Sarah pulled herself to her feet and began walking deeper into the jungle, away from David and toward an uncertain but self-determined future. The midlife crisis transformation she had never chosen was beginning whether she was ready or not. The pregnancy that David saw as a burden would become her source of strength. The isolation he had planned as her death sentence would become her opportunity for rebirth. The pregnant woman's survival story was just beginning, and Sarah Mitchell was about to discover reserves of strength she never knew existed. Sarah stumbled through the jungle for hours, her maternity clothes torn and mud-stained, her body pushed beyond its limits. The baby's movements had become more frequent, as if responding to her stress, and she was terrified that her flight through the dangerous terrain was harming the child she was trying to protect. As darkness began to fall, exhaustion finally overcame adrenaline. Sarah collapsed beside a small stream, using her hands to cup the questionable water to her lips. Everything she had learned about pregnancy safety seemed irrelevant when the alternative was dehydration. Senora, are you hurt? Miguel's voice cut through the jungle sounds like a lifeline. Sarah looked up to see the guide pushing through the vegetation, his face showing genuine concern rather than the conflicted expression from earlier. Miguel, how did you find me? I never left, he admitted, helping her to her feet. Your husband, he pay me extra money, but I have daughters. I could not leave pregnant woman alone with man like that. The betrayal trauma began to shift as Sarah realized not everyone was part of David's plan. Miguel's conscience had ultimately overruled David's bribes, giving her the first ally she had found since discovering the affair. Where is David now? Sarah asked fearfully. He think you are lost, maybe dead. He returned to lodge. Tell everyone you had accident on trail. Very sad story about unstable pregnant woman who wander into jungle alone. Miguel's description of David's cover story revealed the full scope of his husband's calculated cruelty. Even her disappearance had been planned and rehearsed. I help you, but we cannot go back to lodge. Your husband and his woman, they will not let you leave alive. Miguel's broken English carried urgent truth. But I know place, medical facility, very private, doctor who help women in trouble. Sarah had no choice but to trust Miguel. Her pregnancy complications were worsening by the hour, and she could feel concerning changes in her body that suggested serious problems developing. The baby's strong kicks had become irregular, and cramping pain was intensifying despite her attempts to ignore it. They walked for another hour through increasingly difficult terrain, following paths that seemed invisible to Sarah, but were clearly familiar to Miguel. Eventually, they emerged at a modern compound hidden deep in the jungle, its solar panels and satellite dishes incongruous among the primitive surroundings. "This is BioVita Research Station," Miguel explained. "Dr. Martinez. She helped many women who cannot get help other places." Dr. Elena Martinez was not what Sarah expected. A woman in her 40s with graying hair and kind eyes. She spoke perfect English and moved with the confidence of someone accustomed to handling medical emergencies in challenging conditions. "Bring her inside immediately," Dr. Martinez instructed after one look at Sarah's condition. "How long has she been experiencing bleeding?" Sarah looked down in shock to see blood on her torn clothes. In her panic and exhaustion, she hadn't noticed the pregnancy complications escalating to dangerous levels. "I don't know," Sarah whispered. "Everything happened so fast." Dr. Martinez's examination was thorough and professional, but Sarah could see concern growing in the doctor's expression as she reviewed ultrasound images and blood test results. "Your pregnancy is viable, but you're experiencing significant stress-related complications," Dr. Martinez explained. "Without proper care, you could lose the baby. With proper care, both you and your child could be fine." "I don't have insurance here," Sarah said desperately. "I don't have money. My husband—" "I know about your husband," Dr. Martinez interrupted gently. "Miguel told me why you're here. This facility specializes in helping women who find themselves in impossible situations." Sarah felt the first flicker of hope since discovering David's affair. "You mean I can stay here, have the baby safely?" "It's not that simple. Our research requires significant funding, and our patient care is limited to specific circumstances." Dr. Martinez paused, choosing her words carefully. "However, there may be opportunities for mutually beneficial arrangements." The phrase mutually beneficial arrangements set off alarm bells in Sarah's mind, but she was desperate enough to listen. "What kind of arrangements?" Dr. Martinez led Sarah to a comfortable recovery room and handed her a tablet computer. "Our facility conducts research on pregnancy complications and fetal development. Your case is particularly interesting from a medical perspective." On the tablet screen, Sarah saw a video call connecting. A handsome Asian man in an expensive suit appeared, speaking from what looked like a corporate boardroom. "Sarah Mitchell, I'm Marcus Chen, CEO of Chen Biotechnology. Dr. Martinez has briefed me on your situation." Sarah's exhaustion made it difficult to process this sudden introduction to high-level business discussions. But Marcus's tone was warm and reassuring. "I understand you're facing some challenging circumstances. I may be able to help, but I need to be completely honest about what that would involve." Over the next hour, Marcus explained that Chen Biotechnology was developing breakthrough treatments for pregnancy complications. Sarah's specific medical situation, combined with her pregnancy stress factors, made her an ideal candidate for their research program. "The treatments are experimental but completely safe," Marcus assured her. "They've shown remarkable success in preventing miscarriages and ensuring healthy births in high-stress situations." "What would I have to do?" Sarah asked. "Simply stay at the facility, receive the best possible medical care, and allow us to monitor your pregnancy progression. In exchange, all your medical expenses are covered. You receive a comfortable place to live, and we help you build a new life after your baby's born." The offer seemed too good to be true, but Sarah's alternatives were limited. She was stranded in a foreign country, pregnant and penniless, with a husband who wanted her dead. "There's one more thing," Dr. Martinez added. "The research program includes legal support. We help our patients document domestic abuse situations and build cases for custody protection." Sarah's heart leaped at the possibility of legal help. David's plan to claim she had abandoned him would fall apart if she had professional documentation of his abusive behavior. "I'd like to accept," Sarah said, tears of relief streaming down her face. "Excellent," Marcus replied through the video call. "Dr. Martinez will handle the immediate medical concerns. I'll arrive in Costa Rica tomorrow to discuss the broader implications of our partnership." As the call ended, Sarah felt the first genuine hope she had experienced in weeks. The unexpected opportunities emerging from her desperate situation felt like a miracle. But she couldn't shake a lingering concern about trusting anyone after David's betrayal. That night, as Sarah rested in the medical facility's comfortable quarters, her phone finally had enough signal to check messages. The screen exploded with notifications, missed calls from David, voicemails expressing frantic worry about her disappearance, and social media posts from Veronica expressing sympathy for the tragic accident that had befallen David's unstable wife. David's cover story was already in motion. According to the post Sarah read, she was a mentally unstable pregnant woman who had wandered into the jungle during a psychotic episode. David was portrayed as the devoted husband desperately searching for his missing wife. The systematic destruction of her reputation was happening in real time. Even if she returned to the United States immediately, David's narrative would be established and believed. Her midlife crisis transformation would have to include rebuilding her entire identity from the ground up. Sarah's phone buzzed with a call from an unknown number. Against her better judgment, she answered. "Sarah, thank God you're alive." David's voice was perfectly modulated to suggest relief mixed with concern. "Where are you? I've been searching everywhere." "I know what you were planning." "David, what I was planning, Sarah. You disappeared into the jungle. I thought you were dead. Everyone here is worried sick." David's gaslighting techniques were so refined that Sarah almost began to doubt her own memories of their confrontation. Almost. "I heard you talking to Veronica. I know about the genetic testing, the medical records you forged, the syringe." A long pause. When David spoke again, his tone had changed completely. "Where are you, Sarah?" "Somewhere safe. Somewhere you can't hurt me or the baby. You're making a mistake. The people I owe money to, they won't stop looking for me just because you disappeared. If you come home now, we can work something out." Sarah felt a chill as she realized David's debts were apparently more serious than simple financial problems. "What people?" "David, what have you gotten involved in?" "Nothing you need to worry about if you just come home and we handle this like adults." "Handle what like adults?" "My murder." David's laugh was cold and humorless. "You always were dramatic. No one is trying to murder anyone. Sarah, but there are consequences to running away from your responsibilities." The veiled threat was clear. Sarah ended the call and immediately turned off her phone, but the damage was done. David knew she was alive, and according to his own admission, she wasn't the only person looking for her. As Sarah lay in the medical facility's bed, feeling her baby's reassuring movements, she realized her pregnant woman's survival story was far from over. David's betrayal was apparently part of a larger criminal network, and her escape had made her a target for people far more dangerous than her cheating husband. Dr. Martinez had offered her safety and legal protection, but Sarah wondered if even a hidden medical facility could protect her from the kind of people David seemed to be involved with. Tomorrow, Marcus Chen would arrive with promises of new opportunities, but Sarah couldn't escape the feeling that accepting help always came with hidden costs. The female empowerment journey she was beginning would require navigating not just David's betrayal, but the dangerous criminal world he had apparently entangled them both in. The devoted homemaker was about to learn that survival required more than just escaping her husband. It required outmaneuvering his associates as well. Marcus Chen arrived at the BioVita research station the next morning via helicopter, immediately transforming the remote medical facility into something resembling a corporate headquarters. Sarah watched from her window as several people in business attire disembarked, carrying equipment and briefcases that suggested this visit was more significant than a simple check-in. "Impressive, isn't it?" Dr. Martinez commented, joining Sarah at the window. "Marcus doesn't do anything small." Sarah was still processing the surreal transition from abandoned pregnant wife to research patient to potential business partner. The rapid changes were overwhelming, but they represented opportunities she never could have imagined just days earlier. "Mrs. Mitchell," Marcus said warmly when they met in the facility's conference room, "I hope you're feeling better. Dr. Martinez tells me your pregnancy is stabilizing beautifully. Please call me Sarah. And yes, I'm feeling stronger than I have in months." Marcus's presence was immediately reassuring in ways Sarah couldn't quite define. Unlike David's calculated charm, Marcus seemed genuinely interested in her well-being rather than what she could provide for him. "I want to be completely transparent about why I'm here," Marcus began, activating a large tablet that projected onto the conference room wall. "Our research program isn't just about medical advancement. It's about empowering women who find themselves in impossible situations." The presentation that followed revealed the scope of Chen Biotechnology's work. They had developed breakthrough treatments for pregnancy complications. But more importantly, they had created a network of support for women escaping abusive relationships. "We've learned that stress-related pregnancy complications often correlate with domestic abuse situations," Marcus explained. "Our program addresses both the medical and legal challenges these women face." Sarah was amazed to see testimonials from dozens of women who had rebuilt their lives through the program. Former victims had become successful businesswomen, advocates, and entrepreneurs, all with Chen Biotechnology's support. "What would this look like for me specifically?" Sarah asked. "First, we ensure your baby is born healthy. Second, we help you build a legal case documenting David's abuse and fraud. Third, we provide education and business training to help you establish financial independence." The female empowerment story Marcus was describing sounded too good to be true, but the evidence on screen was compelling. Sarah was particularly struck by testimonials from women who had started their own businesses with Chen Biotechnology's backing. "I should mention," Marcus added carefully, "that our legal team has already begun investigating your husband's activities. What we've found is concerning." Marcus gestured to his assistant, who handed Sarah a thick folder. Inside were financial documents, phone records, and surveillance photos that painted a picture of David's life she had never suspected. "David owes approximately $3 million to a network of loan sharks and criminal financiers," Marcus explained. "His law practice has been failing for 2 years, and he's been using your personal credit and forged documents to secure increasingly dangerous loans." Sarah stared at bank statements showing massive withdrawals and transfers she had never authorized. Her signature appeared on loan documents for amounts that made her feel sick. "How is this possible? I never signed any of these." "Forgery, identity theft. David has been systematically destroying your financial life to fund his gambling addiction and lavish spending on Veronica." The betrayal trauma reached new depths as Sarah realized David hadn't just been planning to kill her. He had been slowly destroying her financial identity for years. Even if she had never discovered the affair, she would have eventually faced financial ruin and criminal charges for debts she never incurred. "There's more," Marcus said gently. "Veronica Sterling isn't just David's mistress. She's a social media influencer with over 2 million followers, and she's been documenting your alleged mental breakdown for her audience." Marcus's assistant activated another screen, showing Veronica's social media accounts. Sarah watched in horror as her most private struggles were turned into public entertainment. The post painted Sarah as an unstable, jealous wife who had become increasingly erratic during her pregnancy. Veronica had carefully crafted a narrative showing David as the long-suffering husband of a mentally ill woman who refused treatment. "This video was posted yesterday," Marcus said, playing a clip that made Sarah's blood run cold. On screen, Veronica spoke directly to the camera with practiced sincerity. "I never wanted to get involved in someone else's marriage, but David's wife has become dangerous. She's threatened me multiple times, and now she's disappeared into the jungle while pregnant. David is beside himself with worry." The comments below the video were unanimously supportive of Veronica and critical of Sarah. Thousands of people were calling Sarah selfish, unstable, and unfit to be a mother. The social media betrayal was systematically destroying her reputation in front of millions of viewers. "How can she do this? None of it is true." She's building a public narrative that supports David's legal strategy, Marcus explained. If you were to die or disappear permanently, Veronica would be seen as the innocent victim who tried to help a troubled family. Sarah felt physically sick as she realized the sophistication of David and Veronica's plan. They weren't just planning her death. They were creating a public relations campaign that would make her murder seem like a tragic but inevitable outcome of her mental illness. But now we have documentation proving David's criminal activities and Veronica's deliberate defamation campaign. Marcus continued, my legal team specializes in destroying these kinds of systematic abuse scenarios. Dr. Martinez joined the conversation with Sarah's latest medical reports. Your pregnancy is progressing beautifully despite the stress. The experimental treatments are preventing the complications that might have endangered both you and the baby. What kind of treatments? Sarah asked, suddenly concerned about what she had agreed to. Completely safe nutritional and stress reduction therapies, Dr. Martinez assured her. Nothing experimental enters your body. We're simply monitoring your responses to optimal care conditions. Marcus pulled up another presentation showing Sarah's potential future with their program. We're prepared to offer you a comprehensive package, complete medical care through delivery, legal support to prosecute David and clear your name, business education and startup funding, and ongoing protection from David's criminal associates. What's the catch? Sarah asked, having learned to distrust offers that seemed too generous. No catch. Our program succeeds when our patients succeed. Every woman who rebuilds her life becomes an advocate and mentor for others. It's a sustainable model that creates positive change. Sarah was beginning to understand that Chen Biotechnology wasn't just a medical research company. It was a sophisticated network dedicated to empowering women to escape abusive situations. The therapy and self-discovery themes Marcus described appealed to her desire for genuine change rather than just survival. There is one immediate concern, Marcus added. David's social media campaign is gaining momentum. Within 24 hours, your story will probably be picked up by national news outlets as a cautionary tale about untreated mental illness during pregnancy. Sarah's phone, which she had turned back on to monitor David's activities, was already flooded with messages from reporters requesting interviews about her breakdown and abandonment of her husband. Can we stop it? Sarah asked desperately. We can do better than stop it. We can control it. Marcus smiled for the first time since arriving. My public relations team specializes in flipping narratives like this, but we need to act fast. What do you need me to do? First, we document everything that happened between you and David, creating a legal record of abuse and attempted murder. Second, we prepare a counter-narrative showing David's criminal activities and Veronica's complicity. Third, we let David think he's winning while we build an unassailable case against him. The strategic approach Marcus described was unlike anything Sarah had ever considered. Instead of simply surviving David's betrayal, she would systematically expose and destroy the criminal network that had targeted her. When David realizes what we're doing, he'll escalate his efforts to find you, Marcus warned. Are you prepared for that level of conflict? Sarah thought about the baby growing inside her, about the years of emotional abuse she had endured, about the millions of people who now believed she was an unfit mother based on Veronica's lies. I'm tired of being a victim, Sarah said firmly. What do we do first? Marcus's smile was encouraging, but serious. We turn you into David's worst nightmare, a woman with resources, legal protection, and nothing left to lose. The heartbreaking family drama of Sarah's old life was ending, but the female empowerment story of her new life was just beginning. The pregnant wife betrayed was about to become a formidable opponent in a battle David never saw coming. As Sarah signed the partnership agreements with Chen Biotechnology, she felt the baby kick strongly, as if approving of the decision to fight back. The midlife crisis transformation she had never chosen was becoming a conscious rebirth into someone David would never recognize. The devoted homemaker was becoming a warrior, and the war for her life was about to begin in earnest. Sarah's transformation from victim to fighter began immediately. Marcus's team converted part of the medical facility into a war room, complete with legal experts, public relations specialists, and cybersecurity analysts who worked around the clock to build their case against David. The first rule of strategic warfare, Marcus explained during Sarah's morning briefing, is to make your opponent believe they're winning while you systematically destroy their foundation. Elena Vasquez, the court-appointed therapist who had become Sarah's most trusted advisor, joined the meeting via video call from the United States. Her transition from therapist to business partner represented the kind of relationship evolution that gave Sarah hope for her own future. David's legal team has filed missing person reports and begun proceedings to have you declared mentally incompetent, Elena reported. They're moving fast, which suggests desperation. Sarah studied the legal documents on screen, amazed by the speed and sophistication of David's attack. He was simultaneously portraying himself as the worried husband and positioning himself to gain complete control of their assets and custody of their unborn child. How can he claim custody of a baby that isn't born yet? Sarah asked. By establishing you as an unfit mother who abandoned her family during pregnancy. Marcus replied, if successful, he would gain sole custody immediately upon birth, regardless of your wishes. The legal battle drama unfolding was more complex than any courtroom television show Sarah had ever watched. David's strategy relied on her continued absence to support his narrative of abandonment and mental instability. But we have an advantage he doesn't know about, Elena said with satisfaction. I've been documenting David's abusive behavior patterns for months. Sarah was confused. How could you have been documenting David? We just met. We didn't just meet. Sarah, I've been your insurance company's recommended therapist for pregnancy-related stress. David scheduled our sessions and insisted on receiving all my reports. The revelation hit Sarah like a physical blow. Her midlife insecurities and pregnancy concerns hadn't been private struggles. They had been carefully monitored and documented by someone she thought was helping her. You were spying on me for David. Initially, yes, insurance fraud is common in high-stakes divorces, and David was building a case to prove you were mentally unstable. But after our first session, I realized what was really happening. Elena's explanation revealed another layer of David's systematic abuse. He had been using therapy sessions to create official documentation of Sarah's alleged mental problems, while simultaneously causing the stress that created those problems. Every session was recorded with your permission. Remember, you signed consent forms allowing David access to therapeutic records for insurance purposes. Sarah remembered signing numerous forms without reading them carefully, trusting David to handle their healthcare bureaucracy as he had handled everything else in their marriage. But here's what David doesn't know, Elena continued with a smile. I've been keeping two sets of records, the official ones that documented your stress symptoms and the real ones that documented David's abusive behavior patterns. Elena activated a secure file system showing months of detailed observations about David's emotional manipulation, financial control tactics, and escalating threats. Every gaslighting comment, every instance of isolated Sarah from friends, every sign of his affair had been professionally documented. This is incredible, Marcus said, reviewing Elena's records. We have professional documentation spanning the entire timeline of David's abuse escalation. It gets better, Elena added. I also have recordings of David's instructions to me about how to guide Sarah's therapy sessions to produce specific outcomes. Sarah watched video clips of David explaining how Elena should encourage Sarah's dependency while discouraging her from rebuilding professional confidence. His manipulation techniques were so sophisticated that Sarah began to understand why she had felt increasingly helpless over the past year. He was systematically destroying my self-confidence while documenting the results as mental illness, Sarah realized. Exactly. And now we're going to use his own documentation to destroy him. Marcus pulled up financial records showing the scope of David's criminal activities. While David was psychologically manipulating Sarah, he was also embezzling from his law firm, forging loan documents, and accepting money from criminal organizations. The unlikely partnership Sarah was forming gave her access to resources and expertise she never could have imagined. Marcus's team had uncovered financial crimes that went far beyond marital betrayal. David owes money to people who don't accept bankruptcy or disappearance as payment options, Marcus explained. His plan to eliminate Sarah was partly motivated by life insurance policies he had secretly purchased on her. Sarah stared at insurance documents showing multiple policies totaling over $5 million. David had been systematically increasing her coverage while creating documentation of her mental instability. He was planning to collect life insurance money to pay his criminal debts, Sarah whispered. And he would have succeeded if you hadn't escaped when you did. Dr. Martinez joined the meeting with updates on Sarah's medical progress. The baby is thriving despite all the stress. You're both remarkably strong. How much longer before delivery? Sarah asked. Approximately 4 months, assuming no complications. But I should mention that we've discovered something interesting in your blood work. Dr. Martinez activated a medical presentation showing cellular analysis results. You've been ingesting mild sedatives for several months. Nothing dangerous to the pregnancy, but enough to affect your cognitive function and emotional stability. Sarah's betrayal trauma deepened as she realized David had been drugging her. How is that possible? Probably through vitamins or supplements. Small doses over time would create symptoms that could be attributed to pregnancy hormones or stress. The systematic nature of David's abuse was becoming clear. He had been poisoning her while documenting the effects as mental illness, all while planning her murder and preparing to collect insurance money. We need to document the poisoning immediately, Marcus said. This provides physical evidence of David's attempt to harm Sarah and the baby. Elena activated another screen showing social media analysis. Meanwhile, Veronica's campaign against Sarah is backfiring. My team has been analyzing the comments and engagement patterns. Sarah watched as Elena demonstrated how Veronica's posts about the unstable pregnant wife were generating more skeptical responses than supportive ones. Veronica made a mistake by posting too frequently and with too much detail. People are starting to question how she knows so much about a woman she claims to barely know. Are people beginning to suspect she's David's mistress? Sarah asked hopefully. Better than that, they're beginning to suspect she's involved in Sarah's disappearance. The women supporting women theme that Elena represented gave Sarah confidence that she wasn't fighting alone. Other women who had survived similar betrayals were now working to ensure David's plan failed completely. We've also identified 3 other women who were involved with David over the past 5 years, Marcus added. Each relationship followed the same pattern: financial manipulation, emotional abuse, and sudden disappearance when the women became inconvenient. Sarah realized she wasn't David's first victim, just his most recent target. The hidden past revealed by Marcus's investigation showed a pattern of criminal behavior spanning years. What happened to the other women? Sarah asked fearfully. 2 disappeared without a trace. 1 died in what was ruled an accidental drowning. All 3 had large life insurance policies with David as the beneficiary. The financial recovery Sarah was experiencing through her partnership with Marcus felt miraculous compared to the debt and criminal charges she would have faced if David's plan had succeeded. But knowing about his previous victims made her realize the stakes were life and death, not just financial. David isn't just a cheating husband, Sarah said with growing understanding. He's a serial killer. A very sophisticated one who uses the legal system and social media to create cover stories for his crimes. Marcus confirmed. Sarah's phone buzzed with another call from David. This time, she was ready for him. Hello, David. Sarah, thank God. Where are you? I've been worried sick. I know about Lisa, Amanda, and Jennifer. The silence on David's end confirmed that he understood the implications of Sarah's knowledge about his previous victims. I don't know what you think you know, but you're making a serious mistake. The mistake was trusting you for 15 years. But that mistake is about to become your biggest problem. Sarah ended the call and turned to Marcus and Elena with new determination. What's our next move? We let David make the next aggressive move while we prepare to destroy him completely? Marcus replied. By the time we're finished, he'll lose everything: his freedom, his assets, his reputation, and his access to future victims. The female empowerment story Sarah was living had evolved beyond personal survival. She was now part of a mission to stop a serial killer who had been using marriage as a weapon against vulnerable women. As Sarah felt the baby kick strongly, she realized her child would be born into a world where monsters like David faced consequences for their actions. The pregnancy that David had seen as a liability was becoming Sarah's greatest source of strength. The pregnant woman's survival story was becoming a tale of justice and empowerment that would protect other women from experiencing the heartbreaking family drama Sarah had endured. The arrival of David's previous victims at the BioVita research station created an atmosphere of both vindication and sorrow that Sarah found overwhelming. Lisa Chen, Marcus's younger sister, had survived David's attempt to kill her 5 years earlier. Amanda Rodriguez had spent 3 years rebuilding her life after David's financial crimes destroyed her family. Jennifer Martinez, Dr. Martinez's daughter, had barely escaped with her life when David's abuse escalated to attempted murder. "We all thought we were alone," Lisa said during their first group meeting. "David is extremely skilled at isolating his victims and making them believe they're uniquely flawed." Sarah looked around the conference room at 3 strong, successful women who had rebuilt their lives from the ashes of David's betrayal. The women supporting women dynamic gave her hope for her own future while providing tactical advantages in their fight against David. "How did you all find each other?" Sarah asked. "Marcus started investigating after Lisa was attacked." Amanda explained, "When we realized there was a pattern, we began documenting everything and building resources to help other women." The hidden past revealed by these women's stories was darker than Sarah had imagined. David's criminal network included corrupt lawyers, fraudulent financial advisors, and violent collectors who eliminated inconvenient witnesses. "David doesn't work alone," Jennifer added. "He's part of an organization that specifically targets successful women with assets to steal and insurance policies to collect." Sarah realized her midlife betrayal story was actually part of a larger criminal enterprise. David hadn't chosen her randomly. She had been selected because her marketing expertise and clean financial history made her an ideal target. "But there's something different about your situation," Lisa said thoughtfully. "David usually works with temporary girlfriends who disappear after the victim is eliminated. Veronica is staying around, building a public profile. That suggests something bigger is planned." Marcus activated a presentation showing Veronica's financial activities over the past year. "Veronica has been receiving payments from multiple sources, including David's criminal associates. She's not just a mistress, she's a professional accomplice." The scope of the conspiracy against Sarah was staggering. Veronica's social media campaign wasn't just about destroying Sarah's reputation. It was about creating a public narrative that would support much larger criminal activities. "We think Veronica is positioning herself to inherit David's entire operation when he's arrested or killed by his criminal associates," Elena explained via video call. "She's using your case to establish herself as a victim of domestic violence rather than a perpetrator of financial crimes." Sarah felt a surge of anger as she understood how completely she had been manipulated. "So my pregnancy and David's attempt to kill me are just business opportunities for Veronica." "Exactly. And that gives us tremendous leverage against both of them." Dr. Martinez joined the meeting with exciting news. Sarah's wellness app prototype is ready for testing. The Phoenix Rising app that Sarah had been developing with Marcus's technical team represented her transition from victim to entrepreneur. Using her abandoned marketing expertise and her personal experience with betrayal trauma, she had designed a platform to help other women recognize and escape abusive relationships. The app includes threat assessment tools, legal resource databases, and secure communication networks for women in dangerous situations, Marcus explained. Sarah watched as the app demonstration showed features she had only dreamed of having access to during her own ordeal. The financial recovery aspects included credit monitoring, asset protection strategies, and small business development resources. "We're launching with testimonials from women who have successfully escaped situations like yours," Amanda added. "The authenticity will make it go viral immediately." The business success story Sarah was creating felt surreal given her recent circumstances. But the app represented hope for thousands of women facing similar betrayals. "There's one more component," Lisa said with a smile. "We're including a feature that allows women to secretly document abuse while it's happening." The app would use artificial intelligence to detect patterns of emotional manipulation, financial control, and escalating threats. Women could gather evidence of abuse without their abusers realizing they were being monitored. "David's systematic documentation of your alleged mental illness will become evidence of his systematic abuse," Jennifer explained. "The same techniques he used against you will be used to help other women build legal cases against their abusers." That afternoon, Sarah recorded her first video testimonial for the app launch. Speaking directly to the camera about her experience felt both terrifying and empowering. "6 months ago, I was a devoted homemaker who had given up my career to support my husband's dreams. I thought my biggest problems were pregnancy weight gain and midlife insecurities about getting older." Sarah's authenticity was compelling as she described discovering David's affair, the systematic financial fraud, and the attempt on her life in the jungle. "I want other women to know that the shame you feel is not your fault. The isolation you experience is artificially created by your abuser. The financial problems that seem insurmountable are often the result of criminal activities you never knew about." The therapy and self-discovery themes that Elena had helped Sarah explore became the foundation of her public message. Recovery isn't just about escaping abuse. It's about reclaiming the dreams and capabilities your abuser convinced you to abandon. The video would be the centerpiece of Phoenix Rising's launch campaign, but it also served as Sarah's public declaration of war against David and Veronica. That evening, Sarah's phone exploded with notifications as Veronica launched a counterstrike. A new video showed Veronica in tears, claiming that David's mentally ill wife was now trying to destroy their relationship with false accusations of criminal activity. "Sarah Mitchell is clearly having a complete breakdown," Veronica told her 2 million followers. "She's now claiming that David and I are part of some elaborate criminal conspiracy. This is exactly the kind of paranoid delusion that made her disappear into the jungle while pregnant." The comments on Veronica's video were initially supportive, but Sarah noticed something encouraging. The previous victim's supporters were flooding the comments with questions that Veronica couldn't answer. "How do you know so much about Sarah's mental state if you barely know her?" One commenter asked. "Why are you more concerned about your relationship than about a missing pregnant woman?" asked another. Elena's analysis of social media engagement patterns showed that public opinion was shifting. Veronica is losing credibility with every post. People are starting to see through the manipulation. Marcus pulled up real-time data showing Phoenix Rising's pre-launch registration numbers. "We have over 50,000 women signed up for early access. The demand is incredible." Sarah felt amazed by the transformation in her life. 6 months ago, she had been an isolated homemaker with no financial independence and no career prospects. Now she was leading a technology startup that could help millions of women while systematically exposing the criminal network that had targeted her. "David's going to realize what we're doing soon," Lisa warned. "When he does, he'll try to stop us by any means necessary." "Let him try," Sarah said with confidence she never knew she possessed. "We have resources he doesn't know about, evidence he can't destroy, and allies he can't intimidate." The female empowerment story Sarah was living had evolved beyond personal survival to become a mission of protection for other vulnerable women. The pregnant wife betrayed was becoming a powerful advocate for justice and systematic change. As Sarah felt the baby's strong kicks, she realized her child would be born into a world where her mother had refused to remain a victim. The heartbreaking family drama that had nearly destroyed her was becoming the foundation for preventing similar tragedies in other families. The Phoenix Rising app would launch in exactly 1 week, timed to coincide with Sarah's public revelation of David's criminal activities. The devoted homemaker was about to become a force that David and his criminal associates never saw coming. Sarah's labor began during the Phoenix Rising app launch presentation, creating a surreal blend of business triumph and maternal urgency that seemed to summarize her entire transformation journey. As contractions intensified, She continued speaking to the international media conference via video link, determined to see her mission through to completion. The Phoenix Rising platform represents more than technology, Sarah said, pausing to breathe through a particularly strong contraction. It represents the refusal of women worldwide to accept abuse as inevitable. Marcus, monitoring Sarah's condition from beside the conference room camera, signaled to Dr. Martinez that they needed to transition quickly. The live broadcast of Sarah's app launch was being watched by millions of women, making this a historic moment for both business and maternal advocacy. Sarah, Dr. Martinez said gently, "We need to move to the medical facility now." 5 more minutes, Sarah insisted, addressing the assembled journalists and investors. "I want to ensure every woman watching understands that survival is just the beginning. Recovery, empowerment, and justice are the goals." The childbirth drama unfolding in real time created an unexpected authenticity that made Sarah's message even more powerful. Here was a woman literally giving birth to new life while launching a platform to save other women's lives. The app includes direct connections to legal advocates, financial counselors, and medical professionals who understand the specific challenges faced by women escaping systematic abuse. Sarah continued, her voice strong despite increasing pain. Amanda Rodriguez, monitoring social media response in real time, showed Sarah the overwhelming support flooding their platforms. "We have over 2 million downloads already, and the launch presentation has been shared on every major news network." Sarah's phone buzzed with an incoming call from David. Against everyone's advice, she answered it live on air. "David Mitchell calling," Sarah announced to her global audience. "The husband who tried to murder me in the Costa Rican jungle 6 months ago." "Sarah, stop this immediately." David's voice was transmitted to millions of viewers. "You're having a mental breakdown on international television. This is exactly the kind of behavior that proves you're unfit to raise our child. Tell the audience about Lisa Chen, Amanda Rodriguez, and Jennifer Martinez," Sarah challenged, her contractions providing a rhythm to her confrontation. "Tell them about the life insurance policies you secretly purchased on me. Tell them about the systematic drugging you did to make me appear mentally unstable." David's silence was deafening as millions of people listened to a real-time confrontation between an abused woman and her attempted murderer. "I'm calling the police to have you committed for psychological evaluation," David finally replied. "You're endangering our baby with these delusions." "The only person who endangered our baby was you," Sarah responded, another contraction making her pause. "But this baby is going to be born free from your influence, and she's going to grow up in a world where monsters like you face consequences." Dr. Martinez was insisting more urgently that they move to delivery, but Sarah was determined to finish her public confrontation with David. "Ladies and gentlemen," Sarah addressed her audience directly, "you're witnessing what systematic abuse looks like when the victim refuses to stay quiet. David Mitchell is a serial killer who uses marriage as a weapon against successful women. The evidence is all documented on the Phoenix Rising platform." Marcus ended the video call and helped Sarah transition to the medical facility as her labor accelerated rapidly. The business success story she had achieved was now intersecting with the most personal moment of her life. "The timing is perfect," Elna said via video call from the United States. "David's response to your challenge is being analyzed by millions of people. His threats to have you committed while you're giving birth are destroying his credibility completely." Sarah's labor progressed quickly, aided by months of excellent medical care and stress reduction. Dr. Martinez and her team provided exceptional support, but Sarah's focus remained split between the physical demands of childbirth and the strategic implications of her public confrontation with David. "He's trying to have you arrested for defamation," Amanda reported, monitoring legal developments in real time. "But our evidence packages are being released to law enforcement agencies in 3 countries simultaneously." As Sarah's contractions intensified, Marcus held her hand and provided updates on the global response to her revelation. CNN, BBC, and NBC are all running feature stories about domestic abuse in the digital age. "Your courage is changing the conversation worldwide." "The baby is crowning," Dr. Martinez announced. Sarah, you're about to meet your daughter. The moment of birth was captured by the medical team's cameras, not for publicity, but for Sarah's own memories of this transformative day. As her daughter Phoenix emerged into the world, Sarah felt a surge of maternal protection that eclipsed every other emotion she had experienced. "She's perfect," Dr. Martinez said, placing the healthy baby on Sarah's chest. "Completely healthy despite everything you've both endured." Phoenix Mitchell Chen weighed 7 pounds and 2 ounces, with dark hair and the strong lungs of a fighter. As Sarah held her daughter for the first time, she realized the pregnancy that David had seen as a problem to eliminate had actually produced the greatest source of strength she had ever known. "Phoenix rising," Sarah whispered to her daughter. "That's your legacy, sweetheart. Rising from the ashes of someone else's attempt to destroy us." Marcus's phone buzzed with urgent updates from his legal team. "David has been arrested," he announced. "Federal charges for financial fraud, identity theft, and conspiracy to commit murder." Elena's video call showed news footage of David being led away in handcuffs, while Veronica screamed at reporters about police harassment of an innocent family. The mother's love triumph, Sarah felt, was amplified by the knowledge that David would never threaten her daughter. "Veronica is claiming you fabricated everything out of postpartum psychosis," Elena reported, "but the financial evidence and victim testimonials are overwhelming. She's being investigated as a co-conspirator." Sarah's company valuation had reached $50 million within hours of the app launch, making her transition from abandoned wife to successful entrepreneur one of the most dramatic business transformations in recent history. "The pregnancy complications you experienced were actually caused by the stress of systematic abuse," Dr. Martinez explained. "Now that the source of stress is eliminated, both you and Phoenix should thrive." As Sarah nursed her daughter for the first time, she reflected on the journey from devoted homemaker to empowered entrepreneur. The heartbreaking family drama that had nearly destroyed her had ultimately created opportunities for growth and advocacy she never could have imagined. "There's something else," Marcus said with a smile. "The Phoenix Rising platform has generated enough revenue in its first day to fund expansion into 50 countries. We're creating a global network of support for women facing systematic abuse." Sarah looked at Phoenix's peaceful face and felt overwhelming gratitude for the strength that had carried them both through the darkest period of their lives. The business success story was important, but the personal victory of protecting her daughter from David's influence was the real triumph. "David's criminal associates are distancing themselves from him," Amanda reported. "The publicity has made continued association too dangerous for their operations." The financial recovery Sarah had achieved through her partnership with Marcus was remarkable, but the emotional recovery represented by Phoenix's birth was priceless. The therapy and self-discovery that Elena had guided her through had culminated in the confidence to build a new life entirely on her own terms. As evening fell over the Costa Rican jungle, Sarah held Phoenix and watched the sunset through their medical facility window. Tomorrow would bring new challenges as David's legal proceedings began and Veronica's counterattacks intensified. But tonight was about celebrating the life they had protected and the future they would build together. The pregnant woman's survival story had ended with the successful birth of a healthy baby. The female empowerment story was just beginning, as Sarah prepared to use her platform and resources to ensure no other woman would face the systematic abuse she had overcome. Phoenix's first night on Earth was peaceful and protected, surrounded by people who had fought to ensure her safe arrival. The devoted homemaker had become a powerful advocate, and the abandoned pregnant wife had become a billionaire entrepreneur, all while bringing new life into a world she was determined to make safer for women everywhere. 6 months after Phoenix's birth, Sarah stood in the Manhattan headquarters of Phoenix Rising Technologies, overlooking Central Park from the 40th floor of a building she now owned. The transformation from abandoned pregnant wife to billionaire entrepreneur seemed surreal even to her. But the evidence surrounded her in the form of a thriving company that had revolutionized domestic abuse prevention worldwide. "The quarterly numbers are extraordinary," Marcus reported during their morning executive meeting. "We have active users in 87 countries, and our intervention success rate is 93%. Sarah adjusted Phoenix in her arms as she reviewed the business reports. Her daughter had become the company mascot, accompanying Sarah to meetings and media appearances as a living symbol of triumph over systematic abuse. More importantly, Elena added via video call from the UN headquarters in Geneva. The Phoenix Rising platform has documented over 50,000 cases of systematic abuse, leading to criminal prosecutions on 6 continents. The billionaire transformation Sarah had achieved was meaningful primarily because of its impact on other women's lives. Every dollar of revenue represented another woman who had escaped a potentially deadly situation. David's trial starts next week, Amanda reported from the legal team's conference table. The evidence we've compiled is overwhelming. Sarah felt a mix of satisfaction and lingering concern about confronting David in court. Despite all her success and empowerment, the prospect of facing the man who had tried to murder her and their unborn child still triggered anxiety. "Are you ready for his testimony?" Marcus asked gently. "I think so. Elena's therapy sessions have helped me process most of the trauma, and I understand now that David's abuse was systematic rather than personal." The revenge-served cold theme of David's downfall had unfolded over months of careful legal preparation. Instead of the quick emotional confrontation Sarah had initially craved, their team had built an unassailable case that would ensure David spent the rest of his life in prison. "Veronica's situation is more complex," Elena explained. "She's claiming to be a victim of David's manipulation rather than a willing accomplice." Sarah's phone displayed news footage of Veronica's latest media appearance, where she portrayed herself as another of David's victims who had been coerced into participating in his schemes. "The jury will have to decide whether her social media campaign against you was deliberate cruelty or psychological manipulation by David," Marcus said. "Either way, her credibility as an influencer is destroyed," Amanda added with satisfaction. "Her follower count has dropped by 60%, and major brands have terminated their endorsement contracts." The moral victory Sarah felt was complicated by her understanding that Veronica had also been manipulated by David's sophisticated abuse techniques. The women supporting women principles that guided Phoenix Rising made Sarah reluctant to completely destroy another woman, even one who had actively participated in her attempted murder. "We should focus on getting justice for David's crimes rather than punishing Veronica beyond what's legally necessary," Sarah decided. Phoenix gurgled happily as if approving of her mother's compassionate approach to justice. The baby's presence reminded Sarah that her primary goal was creating a safer world rather than seeking personal revenge. "There's something else we need to discuss," Marcus said carefully. "The FBI has identified David's criminal network, but several associates remain at large." Sarah felt a chill despite the warm office environment. "Are they still a threat to us?" "Potentially. David's arrest disrupted their operations significantly, but organized crime adapts quickly. We've increased security around all Phoenix Rising facilities and staff." The reality that Sarah's success had made her a target for David's former associates was sobering, but not paralyzing. She had learned to live with calculated risks rather than allowing fear to limit her impact. "Our legal team has prepared a comprehensive victim impact statement for David's sentencing," Elena said. "Would you like to review it?" Sarah spent the afternoon crafting her statement for the court, choosing words that would convey the full scope of David's crimes while demonstrating the strengths she had discovered through survival and recovery. "David Mitchell systematically destroyed every aspect of my identity over 15 years of marriage," Sarah wrote. "He stole my financial security, undermined my emotional stability, and ultimately attempted to murder me and our unborn child to collect insurance money." The process of documenting David's abuse in legal language was therapeutic in unexpected ways. Each specific crime listed in the victim impact statement represented a form of trauma Sarah had overcome through her recovery journey. But David's greatest failure was underestimating the strength of women who refused to remain victims, Sarah continued. "His attempt to destroy me led to the creation of a platform that has now protected thousands of other women from similar abuse." The moral victory component of Sarah's statement focused on transformation rather than revenge. She wanted the court to understand that David's crimes had motivated positive change rather than simply causing suffering. The Phoenix Rising platform ensures that David's legacy will be the empowerment of his intended victims rather than their destruction. That evening, Sarah received an unexpected phone call from Jennifer Martinez, who had become a close friend and Phoenix Rising board member. "Sarah, we have a problem," Jennifer said urgently. "David's lawyers are claiming that Phoenix was conceived through artificial insemination rather than natural conception." Sarah felt her blood run cold. "What does that mean?" "They're arguing that David never intended to kill Phoenix because she's not genetically his child. It's a desperate attempt to reduce his charges from attempted murder to kidnapping and fraud." The latest twist in David's legal strategy revealed the depths of his willingness to lie and manipulate even from prison. Sarah realized that David would continue to be a threat until his trial concluded and he was permanently imprisoned. "Can they prove their claim?" Sarah asked. "Not without genetic testing, which would require a court order. But the accusation itself could influence jury sentiment if they believed David was justified in suspecting infidelity." Sarah's rage at David's continued ability to harm her, even from prison, was tempered by her confidence in the evidence they had compiled. Every aspect of David's systematic abuse had been documented, making his latest lies just another example of his manipulative behavior. "Let them request genetic testing," Sarah said firmly. "Phoenix is David's biological child, and proving that will only strengthen our case about his willingness to kill his own family for money." Marcus joined the conversation via conference call. "Our legal team agrees. David's desperation is making him sloppy, and these false accusations will backfire in court." The court date arrived with international media attention, focused on what had become a landmark case in domestic abuse prosecution. Sarah entered the courthouse carrying Phoenix, surrounded by security but determined to face David with dignity and strength. David's appearance shocked Sarah despite her mental preparation. Prison had aged him dramatically, and his expensive suits had been replaced with standard court attire that made him look ordinary rather than intimidating. "Your Honor," Sarah began her victim impact statement, "David Mitchell's crimes represent a pattern of systematic abuse that extends far beyond our marriage." Phoenix's presence in the courtroom created a powerful visual reminder of what David had tried to destroy. The baby's healthy appearance and calm demeanor demonstrated the success of Sarah's efforts to protect her daughter from David's influence. "The evidence shows that David had planned my murder for over a year, using my pregnancy as an opportunity to eliminate me while collecting millions of dollars in life insurance proceeds." Sarah's confidence in speaking publicly about her trauma reflected the therapy and self-discovery work that had transformed her from victim to advocate. The woman addressing the court bore little resemblance to the frightened homemaker who had discovered David's affair 18 months earlier. But David's greatest miscalculation was believing that destroying one woman would solve his problems. Instead, his crimes motivated the creation of a platform that has now protected thousands of women worldwide. The judge's sentencing reflected the severity of David's crimes: life in prison, without the possibility of parole for attempted murder, financial fraud, and conspiracy charges. Veronica received a reduced sentence in exchange for testimony against David's criminal associates. As Sarah left the courthouse, she felt the satisfaction of complete victory over the man who had tried to destroy her. The revenge served cold had been perfect, methodical, comprehensive, and focused on justice rather than personal spite. "It's over," Marcus said as they walked through the crowd of journalists and supporters. "No," Sarah replied, adjusting Phoenix in her arms. "It's just beginning. David's prosecution was about justice for his past crimes. Phoenix Rising is about preventing future crimes against other women." The female empowerment story Sarah was living had evolved beyond personal triumph to become a global movement for systematic change in how society responds to domestic abuse. The billionaire transformation was a tool for impact rather than an end goal. As their car pulled away from the courthouse, Sarah looked at Phoenix's sleeping face and felt overwhelming gratitude for the journey that had brought them to safety and success. The pregnant wife betrayed had become a formidable advocate for justice, and the heartbreaking family drama had transformed into a powerful story of triumph over systematic oppression. The devoted homemaker was now a billionaire entrepreneur. But more importantly, she was a mother who had ensured her daughter would grow up in a world where David's kind of predatory abuse faced swift and certain consequences. 2 years after David's conviction, Sarah stood before the United Nations General Assembly as the keynote speaker for International Women's Day. Her transformation from abandoned pregnant wife to global advocate for women's rights complete in every measurable way. The Phoenix Rising platform had become the world's leading intervention system for domestic abuse, operating in over 100 countries and credited with saving more than 250,000 lives. The greatest victory over systematic abuse, Sarah told the assembled delegates, is not personal survival, but collective prevention. Phoenix, now a confident 2-year-old, played quietly with building blocks in the special childcare area, visible from the podium. Her presence a constant reminder of the life Sarah had protected and the future she was building for all children. Marcus, who had proposed 6 months earlier with a ring designed to incorporate Phoenix's birthstone, watched from the audience with pride that encompassed both personal and professional admiration. Their relationship had evolved from business partnership to deep friendship to romantic love. But Sarah had chosen to focus on her mission rather than remarriage. Marriage represents partnership and trust, Sarah had explained when declining Marcus's proposal. I need more time to distinguish between love and gratitude, between attraction and alliance. The therapy and self-discovery work that Elena continued to guide had taught Sarah that healing from systematic abuse required rebuilding her ability to trust her own judgment about relationships. Marcus's understanding and patience with her recovery timeline had only strengthened their bond. The Phoenix Rising platform now processes over 10,000 intervention requests daily, Elena reported during their monthly video conference. Our artificial intelligence systems can predict escalating abuse patterns with 97% accuracy. Sarah's empire had grown beyond domestic abuse prevention to include financial literacy programs, legal advocacy networks, and entrepreneurship training for women rebuilding their lives after escaping systematic abuse. The happy ending triumph she had achieved felt almost too good to be real. There's something troubling we need to discuss, Amanda reported from Phoenix Rising's legal department. We've identified unusual patterns in some recent data breaches affecting our international servers. Sarah felt a familiar chill of concern. What kind of patterns? Targeted attempts to access files related to David's criminal network. The attempts are sophisticated and persistent, suggesting professional hackers rather than random cybercriminals. Marcus joined the meeting via video link from Phoenix Rising's cybersecurity headquarters. Our analysis suggests the hackers are specifically looking for information about David's associates who were never prosecuted. The unexpected revelation that David's influence extended beyond his prison cell created new anxiety for Sarah. She had assumed his conviction would end the threats to her family's safety. Why would they want information about David's associates? Sarah asked. 2 possibilities, Elena explained. Either law enforcement agencies are building cases against the remaining network members, or the network members are trying to determine how much evidence we have against them. Sarah's peaceful family life with Phoenix had been built on the assumption that David's imprisonment had eliminated the criminal threats against them. The possibility that his associates remained active and interested in her activities was deeply disturbing. There's more, Amanda continued reluctantly. We've detected surveillance of Phoenix's daycare center and Sarah's apartment building. The threat to Phoenix's safety activated Sarah's maternal protection instincts with an intensity that surprised her. The successful entrepreneur who regularly addressed international audiences disappeared, replaced by a mother tiger defending her cub. We're moving to the safe house immediately, Sarah decided. That might not be necessary, Marcus said carefully. We don't have concrete evidence of active threats, just suspicious patterns that could have innocent explanations. Sarah's phone buzzed with an urgent message from an unknown number. Your husband was just the beginning. His real employers want their investment back, and they know where Phoenix sleeps. The blood drained from Sarah's face as she read the message aloud to her security team. The revelation that David's crimes were part of a larger criminal organization that still considered her and Phoenix to be assets created immediate terror. They're calling me David's investment, Sarah realized. The insurance policies, the business assets, the Phoenix Rising platform, they consider everything I've built to be money that belongs to them. Marcus was already coordinating with their security team to implement emergency protocols. We're moving both of you to the secure facility in Switzerland immediately. Sarah looked at Phoenix, who was happily building towers with her blocks, completely unaware that her peaceful childhood was about to be disrupted by criminals seeking to collect debts her father had incurred before her birth. Sarah, there's something I should have told you earlier, Marcus said with obvious reluctance. My family's business has connections to international law enforcement that go beyond normal corporate security. The admission that Marcus had hidden important information about his background triggered Sarah's betrayal trauma responses, despite the non-threatening context. What kind of connections? My father is a federal judge who specializes in international organized crime cases. My brother runs a private security firm that works with government agencies. We've been using those resources to protect you in Phoenix since David's arrest. Sarah felt simultaneously grateful for the protection and angry about the deception. Why didn't you tell me this before? Because I wanted you to trust me for who I am, not for my family's ability to protect you from David's associates. The complexity of navigating relationships while recovering from systematic abuse became apparent as Sarah tried to separate her rational appreciation for Marcus's protection from her emotional response to his secrecy. We can discuss trust issues later, Elena interrupted via video call. Right now, we need to focus on immediate safety for you and Phoenix. As they prepared for emergency evacuation to Switzerland, Sarah received another message. The Phoenix Rising platform has made you worth more alive than dead. Congratulations. You've become our most valuable asset. The implication that Sarah's success had made her a more valuable target for kidnapping than murder was terrifying in new ways. The criminal network wasn't planning to eliminate her. They were planning to control her and her empire. This changes everything, Amanda realized. They don't want revenge for David's arrest. They want to use Sarah's platform and resources for their own operations. Sarah looked at Phoenix's innocent face and made a decision that would determine their future. Marcus, I need you to be completely honest about your family's capabilities. My father can arrange federal protection that would make you essentially untouchable. My brother's firm can provide security that operates outside normal legal constraints, but both options would require giving up the normal life you've built. The choice between safety and freedom reminded Sarah of the decision she had faced in the Costa Rican jungle when she first escaped David. Then, she had chosen uncertain independence over known danger. Now, she faced a similar choice with even higher stakes. There's a third option, Elena suggested. Instead of hiding from David's associates, we could systematically expose and destroy their entire network using the Phoenix Rising platform's resources. Sarah considered the possibility of going on the offensive rather than living defensively for the rest of her life. The female empowerment principles that guided her platform suggested that eliminating the threat entirely was better than simply avoiding it. How would that work? Sarah asked. We use Phoenix Rising's database and artificial intelligence systems to map the entire criminal network. Then we coordinate with law enforcement agencies worldwide to conduct simultaneous arrests that would eliminate the threat permanently. The sequel setup was becoming clear as Sarah realized her story was far from over. The pregnant wife betrayed had become a billionaire entrepreneur, but her final battle would be against the criminal organization that had created David's predatory behavior. What are the risks? Marcus asked. If we fail, we become permanent targets for one of the most dangerous criminal networks in the world. Amanda replied honestly. And if we succeed, Sarah asked, we eliminate a network responsible for systematic abuse of thousands of women worldwide. Elena replied, the Phoenix Rising platform becomes the foundation for international cooperation in preventing organized crime targeting of vulnerable women. Sarah looked at Phoenix, who had built a tall tower and was clapping with delight at her achievement. The choice to fight rather than hide would determine what kind of world her daughter inherited. We fight, Sarah decided, but this time, we fight to win permanently. As they began planning the most ambitious law enforcement operation in Phoenix Rising's history, Sarah realized her transformation from victim to advocate was entering its final phase. The devoted homemaker who had been abandoned in a jungle would ultimately become the architect of a global initiative to protect women from the kind of systematic exploitation she had survived. The final twist in Sarah's story wasn't another betrayal or unexpected threat. It was the revelation that her greatest victory would come from using her platform to ensure no other woman would face the organized criminal abuse that had nearly destroyed her family. Phoenix's future would be secured not by hiding from danger, but by eliminating it at its source. The Phoenix Rising platform would become the instrument of justice for thousands of women whose stories had ended differently than Sarah's. And the pregnant woman's survival story would evolve into a global triumph over systematic oppression. The heartbreaking family drama that had begun with David's betrayal would end with the complete destruction of the criminal network that had created monsters like him. Sarah Mitchell, the abandoned pregnant wife, had become the most dangerous enemy organized crime had ever faced, a mother with unlimited resources and nothing left to lose. 3 years later, Sarah stood in the garden of her Swiss estate, watching Phoenix play with children from 12 different countries whose mothers had been rescued by the Phoenix Rising Intervention Network. The international law enforcement operation had succeeded beyond their most optimistic projections, dismantling criminal networks in 47 countries and leading to over 8,000 arrests. David's death in prison had been ruled a suicide, but Sarah suspected his former associates had eliminated him to prevent further cooperation with law enforcement. She felt no grief for the man who had tried to murder her and their daughter, but she felt profound satisfaction that his death marked the end of his ability to harm other women. Marcus approached with their 3-month-old son, David, a name they had chosen to reclaim and transform rather than allowing David's legacy to poison it forever. Their marriage had been built on complete honesty about both past trauma and future dreams, creating a partnership Sarah had never imagined possible. The United Nations vote was unanimous, Marcus reported with a smile. The Phoenix Protocol will become international law next month. The Phoenix Protocol represented Sarah's ultimate achievement, a comprehensive international framework for preventing, detecting, and prosecuting systematic abuse that crossed national boundaries. Every country in the world would be required to implement Phoenix Rising's intervention systems as a part of their domestic law enforcement capabilities. Phoenix, come here, sweetheart, Sarah called to her daughter, who was teaching other children how to build towers that wouldn't fall down. At 5 years old, Phoenix Mitchell Chen was confident, curious, and completely unaware that her birth had coincided with one of the greatest business success stories in modern history. She knew her mother helped women in trouble and that their family lived in a beautiful place surrounded by friends from around the world. "Mommy, why do all these ladies come visit us?" Phoenix asked, referring to the constant stream of women who sought Sarah's advice and support. "Because sometimes people get hurt, and they need help learning how to be strong again," Sarah explained. "Like when I fell off my bike and you helped me get back up. Exactly like that, sweetheart. But sometimes the hurts are bigger, and people need more help." Phoenix nodded seriously and returned to her friends, her resilience and empathy a testament to the secure childhood Sarah had created despite the circumstances of her birth. Elena, now Director of Global Operations for Phoenix Rising, joined them on the terrace overlooking Lake Geneva. The platform processed its millionth successful intervention yesterday. 1 million women who might have died in situations similar to Sarah's had instead escaped and rebuilt their lives. The mathematical representation of lives saved made Sarah's transformation from victim to advocate feel like a cosmic balancing of scales. "What's next?" Marcus asked, adjusting baby David in his arms. "Next, we ensure that Phoenix and David grow up in a world where systematic abuse becomes impossible rather than just survivable," Sarah replied. The pregnant wife who had been abandoned in a jungle had become a billionaire entrepreneur whose influence spanned continents and whose legacy would protect women for generations. The heartbreaking family drama that had nearly destroyed one family had ultimately saved millions of others. As the sun set over the Swiss Alps, Sarah held her daughter's hand and watched their international family of survivors and supporters gather for dinner. The devoted homemaker, who had once thought her biggest problems were pregnancy weight gain and midlife insecurities, had discovered that her true destiny was protecting other women from ever feeling as powerless as she once had. The Phoenix Rising story was complete, but the platform and principles Sarah had created would continue rising from the ashes of every woman's darkest moment, transforming betrayal into strength and survival into triumph. The pregnant woman's survival story had become a global movement for female empowerment that would outlive its creator and protect daughters not yet born. Phoenix's laughter echoed across the garden, a sound that represented hope, safety, and the beautiful life that was possible when women refused to remain victims and instead became warriors for justice. The abandoned pregnant wife had returned as something far more powerful than a billionaire rival. She had become the architect of a world where David's kind of systematic abuse could no longer thrive in darkness. The final twist of Sarah's story was that there was no final twist, only the ongoing triumph of women who chose to rise rather than fall, to fight rather than hide, and to transform their trauma into protection for others. The Phoenix Rising platform would continue long after Sarah's story ended, ensuring that every woman who faced betrayal would have the resources and support to write her own ending. And in gardens around the world, children would play safely because their mothers had learned that survival was just the beginning, and that true victory came from ensuring no other family would face the heartbreaking family drama that had once threatened to destroy them all.